that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. So lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Energy Week with George Harvey and the famous Tom Fennell. Every day I get up. This morning I was up at 4 o'clock after getting to bed at 11:30 last night. After that meeting at the tech center.
Uh-huh.
Wow. Talking about
Screws up your whole day, huh?
Yeah, it sure does. And of course I've forgotten everything. Oh yes, 4 o'clock in the morning I got up and I started looking at news for energy and climate change, and did that thing of putting up my blog, geoharvey.wordpress.com, and every day I put together a synopsis of each of about 10 or 15 articles with links to the original material. And if you hear a story on here, on this show, you can go to the date, because I try to remember to say the dates for these articles, and you can go to geoharvey.wordpress.com and click on the calendar for that date and see what is available.
Well, some of these articles are quite informative. Some of them are quite interesting just to read.
Yeah, they are. Some of them are very entertaining.
And so, we don't have time to talk about the whole damn article, which is a shame, but we'd be here all week.
I think that's true. All right, so what we should do, I suppose, is get underway. And
can't dance.
Can't dance, at least not on television.
So we're going to start off with a picture here.
We have a picture of solar panels.
A picture of woolly lawnmowers. So
This is from a publication called Energy Matters. What's the title of this story?
Woolly lawnmowers cutting solar farms maintenance costs.
The University of Queensland is saving $50,000 a year in mowing costs at its Gatton campus solar farm by using sheep to keep vegetation down. The ABC reports that to mow the grounds used to take 4 days and cost a significant chunk of change. Now 10 sheep help cut the mowing costs and seem to be enjoying doing so. Do you suppose they pay those sheep for the work they do?
Well, it's good for the sheep. It's good food for them to eat. There's shade, and it's great for the goats because they like to climb, so they get up on top of the panels.
Ghosts?
Yeah. We've seen them out on Western Avenue there. There's nobody there now.
Ghosts?
No tenants. Huh?
Ghosts?
Goats.
Goats.
Ghosts or goats?
I was saying ghosts. You were saying goats.
Sounds the same to me.
This picture reminds me of going through Dartmoor in Devon in southwestern England, and going out on the moor, which is grass, and the moor has heather growing up. And the heather is a woody plant that is allowed to grow for a couple of years before they burn it down. And the result of that is that there's stalks, of charcoal sticking out of the ground.
Oh boy.
Which is, when you think about it, this is not exactly nice stuff to walk through.
And
about every 100 yards, there's another ditch, which is about 4 or 5 feet deep and has vertical sides. And the almost vertical sides, these are erosion ditches, which are encouraged because the sheep need places to hide from the wind.
Oh, okay.
All right. Maybe what they should do is plant solar panels out there and stop the erosion. Should we go on?
Let's. I had a takeaway here.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's not significant to this one, but it is true. In May last year, the largest solar photovoltaic research facility in the southern hemisphere was switched on, comprising more than 37,000 solar panels. The facility covers 17 acres.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big solar farm.
That's a big solar farm. Okay, our next thing has another picture, and this comes from Wind Power Engineering. You have a title on this?
Wind energy is less than 3% of all federal energy incentives. says a new analysis.
Yeah.
Less than 3%. People are complaining about it.
Well, the fossil fuel industry is complaining about it vociferously.
Well, they've been getting 100 years worth of incentives.
Yeah, and their incentives don't end, unlike wind power, which there's always a termination
They're
date.
built into the budget, so nobody knows they're there.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say that the nuclear people and the fossil fuel people would take issue with this particular graph chart, because they're, nuclear in particular, they've been liking to say for years, we don't get any subsidies at all.
Can you say Price Anderson?
Can you say Price Anderson? Can you say, we'll take care of your waste and charge it to the taxpayer? But, there's an old saying, figures lie and liars figure, and it's really hard to know exactly what's going on in the minds of people who put this together. I noticed that the information came from a variety of sources. And I'm not arguing against this figure. What I'm just saying, let's be honest. Wind power does not get big subsidies, however. It gets a fraction of the subsidies of ethanol. And ethanol being blended into gasoline,
which is a total loss.
A complete loss. It takes a gallon of gasoline to make a gallon of ethanol. Why are we doing that?
Well, the simple answer is that the people who are producing the ethanol are the same people that own the refineries.
Well,
thank God how the money rolls in.
Yeah, this is agribiz. So
interesting takeaway from this article. Well,
yeah.
You haven't still read it. You haven't read it yet, have you?
Oh, yes, I haven't. Wind energy accounts for an extremely small share of all federal energy incentives, according to the most comprehensive review of energy incentives to date. The AWEA's compilation of all available data shows that for every dollar spent on federal energy incentives, wind energy received less than 3 cents. Now, I want to point out, AWEA is the American Wind Energy Association. So you have to remember that.
So they're biased.
That chart was put together by somebody who's got a vested interest in the information that's in it.
Makes sense.
But we will get to other information later in this show that is very much to their advantage, which doesn't come from them. And anyway.
Well, this is a pretty good takeaway here. It's one sentence.
Yeah.
Recent analysis confirms that each megawatt hour of wind energy, really of any kind of alternate energy, the amount produced by a typical turbine in a little over an hour, provides $75 in benefits for human health and the environment by reducing air pollution.
Yeah.
We've been saying that on the show for a long time.
Another thing that the fossil fuel industry will deny.
Yeah.
But of course,
they're well entrenched. And
they're well entrenched.
For a long time.
And what?
Can you say Rockefeller?
Well, the Rockefeller brothers are agreeing. They're dropping out of that race.
Yes, they are.
Again, we're talking about information coming from a source that benefits from that information. So the fossil fuels industry can accuse the wind industry of lying if it likes, but let's get real here. Okay, should we go on?
Let us go on.
By the way,
yeah.
I failed to say something, and that is that those two pieces that we just talked about came from August 16th. Last week our show was done on Wednesday, which means that Tuesday.
Yeah, we've got to do it this week.
Which means that Tuesday's stuff is this week.
So it's a little bit out of sync here.
It's a little out of sync, but those were from
stuff.
August 16th. Our next item comes from August 17th, Wednesday, August 17th.
This is a very interesting one. Netherlands on the verge of banning new gasoline cars by 2025.
2025?
That's coming up soon, folks.
Clean Technica is the source of this. The Netherlands may soon approve an outright ban on new cars fueled by gasoline or diesel fuel by the year 2025. Only zero-emissions cars powered by batteries or hydrogen fuel cells would be permitted. Germany,
wow, that's radical.
It is. Germany may not be far behind, with growing murmurs of support of a ban on conventional cars by 2030.
Well, in Europe, they're doing better than we are with electric cars. Far better.
Yeah.
Norway is doing the best of all European countries by getting electric cars on its road. Today, 29% of all new cars sold in Norway are zero-emissions electric cars.
And you know, that's really interesting because Norway, on a per capita basis, is either the first or second highest producing oil country in Europe.
I think they're second after
After
UK.
Scotland.
Yeah, yeah. Well, okay, Scotland, UK, but yeah.
UK is a
Scotland
group,
is part of UK.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then talking about Germany, they've, as we mentioned, had an ambitious goal to reduce carbon emissions by up to 95% by 2030.
Wow.
But they've only recently begun offering financial incentives to the buyers of zero emissions cars. It's just starting in Germany. But
Yeah.
they're heading that way too.
They're heading that way. Okay, that
Moving
was from
along.
Clean Technica, and so is our next item.
Federal court knocks down challenge to the EPA's social cost of carbon. This is an interesting article.
It sure is. The federal government calls the impact of carbon dioxide the, quote, social cost of carbon, end quote, and the EPA set a price at $36 per metric ton of carbon dioxide emitted into the atmosphere. A group of refrigerator makers sued, calling the piece, quote, arbitrary and capricious, end quote, but a federal district court ruled against them unanimously. And that unanimously part is significant because it may mean that
Well, yeah, I mean, again, these guys have been passing on the costs of operation to the taxpayers.
yeah.
I'll give you a quick rundown. Most of us never heard the phrase untaxed externality. It is an arcane term that economists use. Essentially, it refers to a cost created by one person that has to be paid by another.
Yes.
Carbon dioxide is one such taxed externality.
Now, we've talked about the external costs of fossil fuels quite a lot on this show over over a long period of time.
It's
I
real.
just want to point out to people the amount of money. This is something, paying attention to the news. And I look at probably 350, 400 articles every day in which I pay attention to these things. The externalities, the costs of externalities for fossil fuels, I have seen variously estimated, ranging at amounts ranging from $1.7 trillion a year to $7 trillion a year worldwide. Now, that amount of money is somewhere between $250 and $1,000 per person worldwide. And
Say that again.
$250 to $1,000 per person.
Per person.
Yeah.
Every
Now,
person.
Every person.
Basically is paying for that one way or another.
Right.
Wow.
And what happens is that what that means, if you think about what it means to a person in Vermont or California or something like that, you have to remember that's per person, so that that a person who's earning $2 a day supporting a family of 6 is not going to be putting $3.50 a day into healthcare costs. But those are what they are, and most of that is healthcare.
So this is all averaged out.
It all comes out, yeah. But we are paying the biggest bill in the United States, in the UK, in Europe, in Australia, and so
Well,
forth.
here's a takeaway that addresses just that. Fossil energy companies oppose pollution standards that would make them responsible for the harm they cause our health and our planet.
Yeah.
They
In
would
other
like
words,
the public to think government health, safety, and environmental standards have only costs, no benefits, so they're seeking to block the social cost of carbon as a way to block considering benefits.
yeah, they don't want to pay the bill for the damage they're
Well,
doing.
it's
And
helping their bottom line.
The fact of the matter is we don't have the technology to take the mercury out of Lake Champlain. It isn't there.
Yeah.
So we can't charge them for that.
Yeah.
So what do we do about that? Essentially, our neighbors are dumping trash in our backyard and expecting us to pick it up.
And we have been doing it.
And we've been doing it so long that it seems
It's
like a very
normal.
natural thing
Yeah.
to do.
And-
Okay, we're up to Thursday, August 18th.
Got a nice picture coming
We
up.
have a picture here. Let's see that. Oh, yeah. This article comes from CNN.
Can La Nina save the world from record hot temperatures? And this is in Louisiana after the last storm. Not
This picture is from
the
after
hurricane.
Hurricane Katrina. July was the hottest
That's a
month.
lousy parking job.
Yeah, it is. You know, I looked at that. I looked at that median concrete barrier, and I wonder if it broke the backs of those boats.
Could have.
I mean, if it did, it may be that those boats are a total loss.
It could have.
July was the world's hottest month ever, according to NASA, the 10th month in a row to break record temperatures globally. Since October 2015, every month has set a new global record for hottest temperatures, but the rise may soon slow down. A developing La Nina pattern may help, although probably not until next year.
Well, it's virtual certainty that 2016 will prove to be the hottest year on record.
We'd have to have some very strange record temperatures for that not to happen, and I mean low temperatures. It's impossible to imagine.
Shall we move along?
Yeah, this damage, by the way, is damage that some people attribute to climate change. We will get back to it.
Yeah, near the very end, there's an interesting piece. Interesting piece about Louisiana.
About Louisiana. Our next item is from the Boston Herald.
Unanimous Supreme Judicial Court, that's what Massachusetts calls it, shoots down gas pipeline tax for electric ratepayers.
How do you like that?
Well, talk about external costs. We're going to build a pipeline, but you guys are going to pay for it.
And then we're going to charge you for the gas that goes through
right.
it. Electric utilities cannot pass on to their Massachusetts ratepayers the cost of financing new natural gas pipelines. The state's highest court ruled on Wednesday, and that, of course, is Wednesday, August 17th. The unanimous decision from the Supreme Judicial Court was cheered by environmental groups, which had dubbed the proposed tariffs a, quote, pipeline tax, end quote. And I will tell you that since this article appeared, I've seen a bunch of articles appear in various newspapers in Maine complaining about this because it means they can't get that natural gas.
That's exactly right. Well, there's more to it than that. The Maine Public Utilities Commission approved a plan last month to require utility ratepayers to help pay for expanded natural gas.
Yeah.
But only if other New England states acted accordingly.
Yes.
And Massachusetts just kind of fouled up the Maine plan, didn't it?
It sure did. And it means that they're not going to get natural gas. And of course, the governor of Maine is a person who is very much anti-renewable, pro fossil fuels.
Yeah.
And you know, anyway. That one was from CNN. And should we go on? Oh, I mean Boston Herald.
Fossil fuels are dead. They just don't know it yet.
Yes, that's right.
Well, next one is an annual wind report confirms tech advancements and improved performance and low energy prices. And this is about the U.S.
Yes, Eureka Alert, or Eureka Alert, I suppose.
Nice picture there.
That's a picture of wind turbines in North Dakota. Wind energy pricing.
And an impending storm.
Yes. Wind energy pricing remains attractive to utility and commercial ratepayers, according to an annual report released by the U.S. Department of Energy and prepared by the Electricity Markets and Policy Group at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory. The levelized long-term price of wind power averages around 2 cents per kilowatt hour.
Repeat that. 2 cents.
The levelized long-term price of wind power averages around 2 cents per kilowatt hour.
That's amazing.
It is. You know, I sat there and I looked at that and I said, the levelized cost of wind power, this is the wholesale price of wind power and power purchase agreements.
Okay. Including all costs.
Yeah, including the costs that are covered by
dismantling it.
Yeah, everything. But the thing is, the levelized cost takes the cost that they're charging and adds to it the federal subsidies.
So the subsidies are counted in that.
Yeah. And that means the subsidies until the end of this year, as I recall, are 2.3 cents. So that means that these utilities some of them are signing contracts at below zero.
Okay.
All right. And when I started playing with this one, I realized, first of all, it would mean we could end the wind subsidies, and it would mean that the wind industry would just keep going.
I think you're exactly right.
However, I don't think that's a good idea because it gives us an opportunity that's really kind of amazing. When I read this, I thought back to an article that appeared several years ago in which there was a description of research and development that was being done by the U.S. Navy, okay?
Who uses a lot of fuel.
They use a lot of fuel. Aircraft carriers, as you might be aware, typically have 2 small nuclear reactors on them. And these things are 200 plus megawatts, and which means that together they're not quite as big as Vermont Yankee was. And Vermont Yankee was not a big nuclear power plant. Nevertheless, they were looking into technology that would take carbon dioxide out of the seawater and react it with hydrogen, which they produced out of the seawater, to make hydrocarbons. And they figured that they could make aviation fuel at a cost of about $6 a gallon.
Out of seawater.
On an aircraft carrier out of seawater. Now, this
On the aircraft carrier while they're out at sea.
While they're out at sea. Now, this sounds like a lot of money for aviation fuel, maybe, but it costs $8 a gallon to deliver aviation fuel to an aircraft
they got these big tankers out there. Yeah.
So they're very excited about this. So I got a hold of their spreadsheets.
Okay.
And I started looking at them, and I realized that at an electric cost of 0 on land, if we can get wind power at 0, which we can get, because we could actually buy power from wind power and say, okay, we're going to sell off parts of this during the daytime at peak demand when it's expensive, and just keep all the stuff that's below 0 cost and just use it to manufacture gasoline, diesel oil, aviation fuel,
so
home
instead
heating
of putting
oil.
it in batteries, you use it to make fuel.
Right. And we could do that at about $1.70 a gallon.
Sounds good to me. Right now, that's competitive.
That's competitive. Yeah.
Low price gasoline is about $2.25 right now.
Yeah, and if we had any kind of federal subsidy for carbon neutral fuel, which would be reasonable to get.
I would imagine if they do this, they will get the subsidy.
Yeah. So, I'm looking at that and I'm saying, why do we need fossil fuels at all? We don't.
We don't. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, we don't need them at all. And that's not necessarily, by the way, the most efficient way to use that wind power in terms of the delivered energy. You could do it other ways, making ammonia, making synthetic gas.
We haven't even begun to crack this particular egg.
No, we haven't. Okay.
A little interesting takeaway here. Wind sector employment reached a new high of 88,000 full-time workers in the U.S. at the end of 2015. So it's bigger than that now.
Yeah.
And the profitability of turbine suppliers has increased over the last 3 years. So they're making money.
Yeah. They're going to get to be a $100 billion a year industry this year. There are hopes.
A mere bagatelle.
$1 billion a year industry. All makes, all models, $1 billion a year.
Yeah.
That is tiny compared to the oil and gas industry.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
it's just tiny. In 2014, there were 21 oil and gas companies that individually made upwards of $100 billion a year. And, so you've got significant opposition to that. Okay, our next piece is from VTdigger.org.
Well, we're moving to Vermont.
We are.
Green Mountain Power to buy 14 more hydroelectric dams.
Yeah, when I saw that, I thought, wow, they're buying the dams on the Connecticut River, but they aren't.
They're not. I thought the same thing.
Yeah. Vermont's largest electric utility is committed to purchase 14 hydroelectric dams in New England to set up and to get power from 2 others, a buy that will net Green Mountain Power an added 17 megawatts of energy production for just over $200 million. The dams will help the company meet statutory renewability requirements.
Well, after reading this article, I got one thing to say about it.
Yeah.
They're small dams.
They're small dams.
They're small dams.
These are a bunch
little
of
bitty dams.
Little bitty dams.
And most of them aren't in Vermont.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. That's right. But we could have a lot more of these dams just by doing what they did in Townsend, Ball Mountain.
We will.
You know, where all they did was they said, here's a dam. It's being used for flood control so that Springfield, Massachusetts doesn't flood after
yeah.
when, you know.
Which it used to real bad.
Yeah, it used to be really bad.
And Hartford.
It's interesting to drive through Springfield and see all the dikes that are all over the place.
Yeah.
If you look at it, you start to realize that the interstate highway system going through there is a series of dikes. You're driving on the tops of dikes.
I didn't realize
and
that.
all they have to do is deliver the sandbags to the underpasses to make them functional.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So
Was that just by accident or was somebody thinking?
nobody was thinking. They never do that in government. But the point is, we've got all these little hydro dams that are not little dams that are not hydro dams that are in Vermont and New Hampshire and all over the United States, as a matter of fact.
I guess most of these were used to power sawmills and stuff.
Some of them were used
Yeah.
for power. Some of them, a lot of them,
At
were
one
not.
time.
Yeah. Anyway, what I'm saying is that I think we could probably we might be able to get a couple hundred megawatts more just by taking dams that already exist and putting hydro
And
facilities. on.
slapping in line turbines in rivers
That's yes. Well, we could get that
that
too.
don't require dams.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
And they exist. I mean, we saw some pictures here. The picture I saw was it looked like a wind tower. I
Yes.
said, that's awful small.
It was a turbine to run underwater.
Yeah, turbine to run underwater.
Yeah, okay. Our next item is from Friday, August 19th. It comes from
We
Renews.
got a nice picture coming up.
Yes.
Let me get this.
This is exciting.
Got to push the right buttons. Here.
Got to push the right button.
Bingo.
There you
Here
go.
we go. Let there be light.
Yes.
Block Island, offshore gold for the U.S.
Yeah, there you go. Fred
Well,
Olson.
it's the beginning of something that will be big.
Yes. That thing on the right that has a crane on it is a ship.
That's fascinating.
It's standing out of the water. We see
We'll
these.
talk about it a little bit
We
later.
will. I'm fascinated by these ships. We have a lot of ships. And by the way, if you look between the two wind turbines on the left, there's a little sailboat. Gives you a little bit of an
But
idea.
his vision has been spoiled.
Fred Olson jackup vessel Brave Tern has lifted the final turbine of the 30 megawatt Block Island project in Rhode Island, a long-awaited milestone for America's first offshore wind farm. Quote, the Block Island wind farm is now fully constructed, end quote. Deep Water Wind's CEO said on Twitter, crews are working on electrical connections. They expect to have this thing operating,
By the fall,
well, at some point in the fall.
November, something like
Yeah,
that.
something
Yep.
like that.
Amazing.
It's amazing.
Now, here's a takeaway that's got me puzzled.
What's
Maybe
that?
it's a typo.
Yeah.
National Grid has agreed to a 20-year power purchase agreement for the output,
Yeah.
starting at 24 cents per kilowatt hour.
That's
That seems awful high.
It does seem awfully high, but offshore wind is high, and they have been told they have to buy offshore wind power.
Well, they're injecting it in the grid at a very appropriate point because they're shutting off a coal power plant at that point.
Yes.
So the grid's going to want power
Right.
coming in there.
Yep.
So they could be paying a premium just for that purpose.
Yes. It is, however, much lower price than the wholesale price of electrical power at Block Island.
Well, that's true too. Yeah.
Because Block
absolutely.
Island was getting its power from diesel.
Yep.
And so you have to throw that whole thing into the mix. And 24 cents may be a little above average wholesale price. It's a lot above wholesale price, but it's still, it isn't
Well, the
what it sounds
circumstances
like.
are changing things.
Yes.
You can't look at just the numbers. You got to look at the reality of the spot.
That's right.
And this is the first one.
Yeah.
And it's small. This
Yes.
is a tiny plant compared to some of the plants in the North Sea.
Oh, this thing
This
is
is
tiny.
tiny.
Yeah. And
This doesn't even exist.
Yes, that's right. Okay. So we're up to Saturday, August 20th,
Okay.
and we have an item from Green Car Reports.
I think we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Are we?
Yeah, Chilean tender.
Oh yes, we've got a Chilean tender from C News Renewables. Sorry about that.
Now this goes goes to what I was just talking about.
Yeah.
A solar bid of U.S. dollars 29.1 megawatt hours was received in a Chilean tender.
This is
Translating that to my mind way of thinking, that's less than 3 cents a kilowatt hour.
yes, for solar power.
For solar.
Unsubsidized solar power. What does it tell you? It tells me that the world is heading in a new direction. Or it's heading in the new direction faster.
It can't not.
Yeah. The recent power supply auction in Chile got a solar bid of $29.10 per megawatt hour for the Maria Elena PV park built by SunEdison. That bid marks the world's record lowest for solar. The previous record was an offer of $29.9 per megawatt hour for the 800 megawatt third phase of the 5 gigawatt solar power complex in Dubai.
We've talked about that.
Pardon me.
We talked about that on the show.
This means that solar power unsubsidized is going on grids for under 3 cents per kilowatt hour. And
10 years ago, nobody would have predicted that.
remember when Vermont decided that it was not going to go with Vermont Yankee for its electric.
Mm-hmm.
The reason for that was because Vermont Yankee was going to charge too much money.
Mm-hmm.
They made what they
right.
thought was an offer nobody could refuse,
And they refused.
and they refused it because they got a better offer. The offer no one could refuse was 6.5 cents per kilowatt hour.
Which is a good price.
The price we got it at from Hydro-Quebec was 6 cents per kilowatt hour.
Okay.
But the cost of solar power here is 2.91 cents per kilowatt hour.
Yeah.
The lowest cost electricity that Vermont has got in the last
6 cents.
was before that disconnect from Vermont Yankee was 3.5 cents.
Oh yeah, we had 3.5 cent power.
From Vermont Yankee. It was an old contract.
Oh really?
It was a really old contract. And now we're getting solar power that beats what was an astonishingly good price 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And, what do you say about that? The cost of nuclear power has only gone up. The cost of fossil fuels has hit a low, which is about double this. And the fossil fuel industry is just going to go out of business if their prices go any lower.
No, they won't be able to compete.
They've got a competitor here in solar power that they can't compete against, as far as I can see. Mm-hmm. So they're going to do, I think, what the nuclear industry has done, and that is to go to the government and say, want money, want money.
Isn't that the way it works?
Give me money. Okay, now we're up to Saturday, August 10th.
Yeah, this one's interesting too. Let me get these pictures up.
Fuel
These are not electric cars. Well, they are, but they're not.
Sorry, they use a fuel cell instead of a battery, and that means
the fuel cell generates electricity for an electric motor.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is from Green Car Reports. So what's the title, Tom?
Hydrogen costs could equal 50-cent gasoline if made with renewable energy.
Okay.
That's a sharp-looking car, by the way.
Yeah,
that really is nice. I want one.
Okay. I'll buy you one when I get rich.
That's a Toyota Mirai.
Mirai, okay.
Yeah. And the one on the left is a Hyundai Tucson.
Okay.
Or is it Tucson?
It's Tucson. Don't get. It's like everybody pronounce these names wrong. Like the city in Texas is called Wacko. When produced using renewable energy, hydrogen could cost nearly the equivalent of 50 cent per gallon gasoline. According to a study from the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, the NREL plan assumes large-scale production of hydrogen through electrolysis, but with renewable energy used for power. Wind power has gone to negative territory regularly at night.
Yes, we've talked about
So you can take the wind power and get paid.
Yeah.
Which means that if you're making hydrogen by electrolysis, you can make fuel that costs you less than nothing to make.
Yeah, you're getting paid to do it.
Yeah, these people who say that renewable power is too expensive, I will point out that previous thing that we were talking about, with the price of wind being 2 cents per kilowatt hour, and this with a competitor for gasoline at 50 cents per gallon. These are U.S. government statistics. This is not wind power or solar power or somebody like that coming up with numbers.
There's a lot of people working on stuff just like this.
Yeah.
You know, and some of them are going to hit the nail right on the head.
Absolutely.
And things will change.
They will. And, you know, I'm figuring that the oil and gas industry, the executives, when they look at the wall in the boardroom, are going to see a hand writing something on it.
And it's not going to be something you're going to be happy about.
No, I don't think so. Okay, are we done there?
We're done on this one. Now, I had a hard time getting a copy of this.
Oh, no, Houston Chronicle. Okay.
Yeah, Al Gore warns of turbulent times ahead for oil and gas.
Well, he did. The oil and gas sector is headed for much more turbulent times beyond the ongoing oil bust, former Vice President Al Gore said in an interview with the Houston Chronicle. He said the industry will go through the same pains as the coal sector unless it adopts more renewable and sustainable sources of power and fuel. And that, as I said, is from the Houston Chronicle.
Well,
The oil industry could save itself by making synthetic fuels, by buying electricity from
Didn't I just
wind
hear
farms.
something like that?
I'll bet you did.
What little I got about this.
I'm not the only person producing this echo.
All I could get out of this is probably all it basically boils down to anyhow.
Yeah.
Al Gore was kicking off a 3-day climate reality project
Okay.
in Houston.
Yes.
And what he said was the oil and gas sector is headed for much more turbulent times beyond the ongoing oil bust that's presently right now, because the world is poised to transform into a low-carbon renewable energy economy.
And this is what the people who have been talking about post-oil situations really haven't keyed in on. They envisioned the price of oil going up. Because the demand would be going up and the availability going down. But in fact, what's happening is the demand is peaking before the supply
oil price
is peaking.
is going down.
Yeah.
And the demand is going down, which is that's illogical.
Yeah. And it's not going down everywhere, but it is going down in many parts of the world. Okay. You want to go on?
His takeaway was energy sector must embrace alternative fuels.
Yeah. You better
And
believe
he's
it.
on the money there.
Our next item is from Russ Tourism News.
Well, let me
And
get
this
this
is from
picture up. This is
the
fascinating.
21st.
Look at that boat, huh?
Yeah.
Look at that thing.
This is from Sunday, August 21st.
That ship is called the Crystal Serenity.
It sure is.
And it's looking to make a clean journey through the Northwest Passage.
Wow.
I mean, that's 10 years ago, unheard of.
Yep.
Unheard of.
Yep.
Sebastian Cabot tried it in what, 1412 or something like that?
14-12.
And he goofed. He couldn't do it.
He couldn't do it. But he left his name behind. Okay. Did we get
I
it?
was wrong. It's John Cabot.
John Cabot.
It was 1497.
Was it? Okay. In a rare endeavor, Crystal Serenity has embarked on a 32-night journey through the Northwest Passage, the Arctic region of north of Canada, that was unattainable until just 100 years ago. Crystal Serenity is about to become the largest ship ever to attempt the Northwest Passage. There are nearly 1,000 passengers on board. This is a passenger ship.
Beautiful passenger.
It is.
Yeah.
I wonder if that.
It'd be very embarrassing if it got stuck in the ice.
Boy, I wonder what reinforcement they've got in the hull. It must have something in that hull to.
Well, it wasn't designed to do this.
It was not.
No, not specially designed to go through the ice.
Oh my gosh! So they're figuring it's going to be sufficiently ice-free.
I think so.
Oh
Yeah,
my gosh!
I think so.
Oh, okay. That's what they should have done on the Titanic.
Let's see if I have.
Nothing more.
I got a quick one.
What's that?
This pioneering cruise was sold out in just 3 weeks, despite prices of between $22,000 and $120,000 per person, and excursions that cost up to $6,000. This is for rich folks, guys.
Yeah, I guess it
This
is.
is for the rich folks. The ship is equipped with state-of-the-art, forward-looking So they did make some changes on it.
Yeah.
Ice detecting high resolution radar, thermal imaging equipment, and specially designed searchlights to help identify
Can you imagine
hazards at night.
what you just said? Radar that can detect ice
That's interesting.
on the ocean.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if they had radar that good during the Second World War?
No.
The radar they had was, just appallingly bad.
No. No,
Did I ever tell you, my father invented radar navigation?
no, you never told
He
me
wasn't
that.
the first one to do it, but he was the first one to do it who wasn't, tied into some super secret thing designed
That's
for the
interesting.
purpose. Yeah, and the Navy actually used it, a thing that he wrote about that, so that destroyer captains, navigators during the Second World War could use their radar for navigation and fire control. And anyway, so we should go on to YLE News.
Okay.
This is more ice.
Yeah, I guess there is. Finnish municipalities show interest in solar parks. Now, Finland's pretty far north.
It's pretty far north.
Now, they don't get a lot of sun in
They
the
don't
wintertime.
get a lot of sun in the winter. At least 3 municipalities in Finland are considering founding solar parks in within their city limits to create energy from the sun. In one commentary, a community about an hour north of Helsinki, a biogas facility would make use of biomass from local community and agriculture in addition to the solar power electricity. Clearly what they're doing is they're looking to get low power electricity when the sun shines and use other sources that are higher when the sun is not shining. And their biogas and biomass are higher cost. So that's why they're doing this. They're going to get solar power 6 months out of the year, roughly.
It's interesting that what they're doing there is going to be 17,000 panels, by the way. It's going to be a big park.
This is a big park.
They're putting it up between a railway and an interstate. Superhighway.
They don't have interstates
Well,
in
they
Finland.
call it a motorway.
Motorways.
Okay.
Superhighway. Okay. Well, there you go.
The park is expected to produce enough power to supply up to 20,000 single-family homes for a year.
My gosh. Okay, we're up to Monday, August 22nd. This next item is from Climate Home.
This is about Electric Avenue. The UK energy mix faces a seismic shift.
This is an opinion piece. These last weeks have been a time when an inescapable set of signals emerges, all pointing in the same direction. The idea that renewables are not competitive with fossil fuels and nuclear power has lost all basis in fact. It's time to wake up to the energy revolution.
Absolutely.
So what do you got here, Tom?
This was a very interesting article. I wouldn't say it was tremendously informative, but it was well written and entertaining.
That's why it's there.
And one of the takeaways is it's almost as if the world were trying to tell you something.
Well, in the UK, they're having a lot of discussion about the Hinkley Point C.
That's what a lot of this article is about. Hinkley.
Right. And the problem is Hinkley is a big nuclear a plant with 2 reactors that they're talking about putting on new. And the cost is just mind-boggling. They're talking about going to the wholesale grid at about 12.5 cents per kilowatt hour, guaranteed.
For 20 years.
For 35 years.
35? Wow.
Yeah. And this is with price increases as the cost of other things increase too.
Well, as I've said before, there's more to this story than meets the eye.
Yeah.
Something's going on up there.
Think about this for a second. You can get electricity from a nuclear power plant for 12.5 cents, or you can get electricity from a renewable plant for 2 cents. Which are you going to choose? Well, of course, people who are in favor of nuclear are going to say, well, you have to have baseload power. And baseload power, there's something that you cannot do with baseload power, and that's supply 100% of your electricity. It cannot be done.
Can't be done.
Because baseload power is...
There are peaks.
and there are valleys, and it is just not built to be. It's very
That's why
inflexible.
they call it base load.
On the other hand, if you have enough wind farms and you've got the transmission lines, you could get 100% of your power 100% of the time from wind alone. You can't do that with nuclear. You can't do it with nuclear and coal and natural gas.
You're talking about the distribution of wind being.
Right.
It's always blowing somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have one city in the United States where the people brag, we are 100% powered by wind 100% of the time.
Amazing.
Yeah. Greensburg, Kansas. City of about 900 people. Okay, all right, we're up to August 23rd.
We've got a picture coming up.
We do.
Too. This is very interesting. The heading here is ANU, and you're going to tell us what ANU is.
Yeah.
Team cracks solar thermal efficiency of 97%.
Yeah.
A world record.
This is actually still August 22nd. But anyway, a team from the Australian National University, ANU, scientists brought economically competitive solar thermal energy generation closer to reality. They hit a record in efficiency for the technology with a design that boosts conversion of sunlight to steam to 97% efficiency. This could produce a 10% reduction in the cost of solar thermal electricity. And they're not talking about 97% efficiency in making electricity. They're talking about 97% efficiency in making steam.
Right.
And that starts to make more sense.
Well,
and
there are ways of increasing the efficiency of the use of that steam, too.
yes, there are.
Village heating and stuff.
Yep. There are a lot of things that you can do with this.
I'm going to leave that picture up for a second
Okay.
here, because this is very interesting. It's all in that. The secret is all in that tin can up on the top.
It's a tin can.
That's very high tech.
It's
very
a high-tech
high-tech.
tin can.
And I looked at this and I said, "Boy, this is nothing new." Back in 1893, somebody designed something like this
Isn't it amazing?
for the World's Fair in Chicago, the Columbian Exposition.
Okay.
It wasn't as big as this. This is 25 feet.
Yeah.
But it was
This is
the
25
same
meters.
damn thing. It was solar thermal.
This is 25 meters.
Is it 25 meters?
I think so.
I think, well, maybe it is. I measured it as 25 feet,
Okay.
which is big.
Yeah.
25 meters is 3 times that size, 100
Yeah.
feet.
Yeah. I think you might be right. I shouldn't be so careless about it.
I was fascinated by that tin can, though, because they went into how it works and all of that. It's mind-blowing. It's really very high tech.
And the people at Renew Economy, which is where this story came from, said they didn't believe it. They thought this conversion was absolute nonsense. And they checked it. They actually did the tests, and it's 97%. Okay, now we're up to Tuesday, August 23rd, and we have another ship. Another ship. I love these pictures of ships. You know, I think I've got more pictures of ships than I've got of wind turbines. Anyway.
The Inuit and Greenpeace demand #solar.seismics.
Yeah, this is so funny. This is from Clean Technica. Navigating through the icy waters of the Arctic, a Greenpeace ship is delivering solar panels to the Inuit community of Clyde River, Nunavut.
That's way far north. You can't get any farther north.
Well, you can, but not on land. Delivering solar panels and a team to install the systems for the Clyde River community is Greenpeace's way of offering a better solution to meet increasing demands for energy. Better than what?
Well, they've been calling it seismics.
Yes.
Okay, and what it consists of, seismic blasting air guns are towed behind ships.
Yep.
And shoot loud blasts of compressed air through the water.
Yeah.
Miles into the seabed, which reflects back information about buried oil and gas deposits. But the blasts harm marine mammals, sea turtles, fish, other wildlife,
Deafen
which include
whales.
hearing loss.
Yeah, they deafen whales and porpoises, which depend on that.
Which hits the whales and porpoises enormously much because they depend so much on sonar.
Yeah.
On their own generated sonar.
Yeah.
And it's habitat destruction, hearing loss,
Right.
disruption of mating and feeding, and even beach strandings.
Yep.
It's a horrible thing.
This is a horrible thing. You're taking it would be kind of like, well, it would be kind of like, well, what they're doing is they're taking animals that depend on hearing and wrecking their hearing
In order to get more oil.
in order to get more oil, which
Makes
is
sense to me, doesn't it?
yeah. By the way, what is oil doing to people? Well, according to the World Health Organization, it's killing people at a rate of about 1 every 8.5 seconds. But the International Energy Agency says, not 8.5 seconds, more like 10.5 seconds.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
And that was now we're up to Wednesday, August 24th,
Well, we
which
still got one more.
we do have one more. Oh, yes, we
Pro-nuclear
do.
countries
Yes,
make
that's
slower
right. Oh,
progress on
this is
climate.
from
This is an
eScience
interesting
News.
thing. I'll say it again. Pro-nuclear countries are making slower progress on climate targets.
A
That's
strong,
politics.
right? A strong national commitment to nuclear energy goes hand in hand with weak performance on climate change targets. Researchers at the University of Sussex and the Vienna School of International Studies have found pro-nuclear countries have been slow to implement wind, solar, and hydropower technologies. Of course they have.
Yeah.
They're spending a lot of money on nuclear. And if you spend the money on nuclear, you don't have it for solar, wind, and hydropower. And of course, solar, wind, and hydropower produce just as much electricity actually probably more electricity for the same amount of more electricity for the same
Well,
amount.
that's
of money.
exactly what this paper was examining.
And they'll do it much faster.
And the takeaway from the paper, if nothing else, the paper casts doubt on the likelihood of a nuclear renaissance, near term or far term, at least in Europe.
Yes. And
It ain't going to happen.
yeah, and it isn't going to happen from small modular reactors either, because it's going to
They're
take.
not going to work. They're not. Well, they might work, but they're not going to be economically.
They're not going to address climate change because they can't come online soon enough. Okay, now we're up to Wednesday,
This is an
August
interesting
24th.
one because we're back to that crazy ship.
Yes.
The UK is just beginning to tap into its vast offshore wind resources.
And
And they are vast. They really are vast.
From Clean Tech.
Look at that ship.
I look at. You tell me, Tom. You've worked on ships. How would you like to be on that thing in heavy seas?
I don't think it'd bother me at all.
Really?
I was on a tin can. It was getting bounced all over the Atlantic Ocean.
Well, yeah, but
that thing there is heavy.
Yeah, but look at how much weight it's got, way up in the air.
Well, if it really got to be a problem, they'd just dump those jacks down into the sea.
They dump the jacks
Yeah.
down into the sea. Okay.
Probably stabilize everything.
Yeah, they probably.
Yeah, if you want to
would.
look at that picture, those brown things are the jacks
Yeah.
that support this ship when it's erecting wind towers.
Yep.
And if you look at the white things, those are the towers for the windmills.
Yep. And you can.
And this is fascinating technology.
It is fascinating.
10 years ago, it didn't even exist.
Yeah. Okay, this is from Clean Technica. A study of UK's offshore wind energy potential has suggested that the total amount of economically feasible installed capacity offshore might be up to 675 gigawatts. This would provide more than 6 times the UK's present electricity demand. Steady winds and shallow waters make offshore winds in the UK especially attractive.
Now, put it in context. A gigawatt is twice as big as what Yankee was when it was built.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so this is like
A gigawatt.
1,300 Yankees.
Yeah, if you're comparing nuclear power with offshore wind, the capacity factor of offshore wind is getting very high.
It's getting high. Yeah, it's getting up there.
A gigawatt would be approximately equal to Vermont Yankee, which was 640 megawatts.
Yep.
So it might even be more than Vermont Yankee. It's about Louisiana. That's Louisiana.
Louisiana climate deniers who refuse Sandy victims
This is so funny.
now
It's
want
sad.
federal flood relief.
Yeah. As residents of Louisiana this week struggle to recover from a 1,000-year flood, one of the worst floods in modern history, there's a chance that federal aid may not be so forthcoming thanks to a trio of Bayou State Republicans who back in 2013 voted against helping victims of another storm, Hurricane Sandy. Why help those victims? They're in the north. They're a bunch of
Well,
Democrats,
the article
liberals.
just said hypocrisy of the lawmakers.
Yes.
On display following the disaster.
They have sent a letter to President
Well, I
Obama.
got that. I've got
You know,
a little bit of a note here.
what is this all about?
Three bio-state Republicans back in 2013 voted against helping victims of Hurricane Sandy, which hit the Northeast. House Majority Whip Steve Scalise, Rep. John Fleming, and Senator Bill Cassidy all cast their votes against the $50.5 billion relief package because of their dogmatic adherence to austerity economics.
Yeah, there you go.
Last week-
they've learned about austerity, haven't they?
Last week, all three signed a letter sent to President Barack Obama earlier this month calling for a disaster declaration in Louisiana and requesting that vital federal resources be made available in an expedited manner.
I think they should be.
Well, they should be.
You know, Louisiana has what are called parishes instead of counties.
Yeah.
And there is a parish in Louisiana in which the people said that at first look, it appears that 75% of the homes in that parish are a total loss.
And he didn't have flood insurance because the flood insurance people said, man, you're never going to have a flood.
In Louisiana? Are you kidding me? The thing that I looked at this particular event and it scares me. It absolutely scares me. And the reason is because this wasn't a hurricane. Hurricane Katrina dropped 12 inches of rain. This thing dropped 33.
Wow. I didn't realize that. 3 times as much.
It wasn't
even a hurricane.
Even a hurricane. It was what's called a mesoscale convective system.
Meso meaning medium.
Medium-sized. It didn't form over water. It formed over land. And of course, it had lots and lots and lots of water available because it was next to the Gulf. But, you know, if you think about it, there is such a thing as a monsoon hitting Arizona. And a monsoon of scale, if you could get the moisture from the monsoon in an event like this in Arizona, well, mesoscale convective systems have hit Vermont in the past. One of them in 1995 formed in Ontario. It had 100-mile-an-hour winds in places. It went across New York, across Vermont, Massachusetts.
What year was that?
1995.
I remember that. Yeah. Went right across southern Vermont.
Yeah. And
matter of fact, if you go up on a road between Wardsboro and Jamaica,
yep,
you can see, maybe it's grown over now, but about a 25, 30-foot wide space of trees that got knocked down by that storm. We all assumed it was a tornado, but they said it wasn't.
It wasn't. It was that kind of event. Now, in this case, it wasn't moving fast. It stayed in one place. And although those events usually only last a few hours, this thing lasted 3 days.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I find frightening. The fact that you could have a stationary storm that can last for days, dumping heavy rain. That's what happened.
Got stuck in one down in South Carolina where it rained for about 3
We
days.
had that horrible rain that wiped out the center of Allstead, New Hampshire.
Yeah.
About it. We've had
I remember
Hurricane Irene, the storm that it had. The storm waters that it brought us were of this kind of scale. And I'm sitting here thinking, you know, we could be looking at events like this that just kind of pop up out of nowhere. And that's
one of the things that's happening is warmer air holds more moisture.
Yep.
So you're going to see more rainstorms.
And all that warm air has got to do to ditch that moisture is to run into colder air.
Yep.
And that's what happened in Louisiana.
That's what happened.
And that could happen anywhere in the country. And you know, even Bill Nye, the science guy, agrees. We're in for trouble.
Yeah, he's changed his tune, hasn't he?
Folks, we are at the end of our rope.
I think we are.
And so, an end of our show. Sorry.
End of our boat. Is that what you said?
Rope.
Oh.
So we will say goodbye.
Good night. Goodbye,
Have a
folks.
nice week. Hope to see you next time.
I would hope gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still.